This webinar is brought to you by the Connected Educators Project, a collaboration of the Friday Institute with COSIN, supported by the U.S. Department of Education. AIR and a number of other organizations are also partners in this project. I've already mentioned that I'm the facilitator today, and let me go on and introduce our presenters. It's a great pleasure to have you here at the Friday Institute today, Governor Perdue. Bev Perdue is the 73rd governor of North Carolina and the first woman governor. She previously served as a state legislator and lieutenant governor, and throughout her long and distinguished career in North Carolina, she's been very deeply dedicated to public education, innovation in education, and a great supporter of technology in education, fostering things like the North Carolina Virtual Public School, the second largest virtual school in the country, school connectivity initiatives, and many others. Also enjoy noting that before entering public service, Governor Perdue worked as a public school teacher and has earned a PhD in educational administration. So she understands the things we'll be talking about today, both from a practitioner point of view as well as a policy point of view. We're also delighted to have with us former Governor Bob Wise. Bob Wise serves as president of the Alliance for Excellent Education, and he also currently co-chairs the Digital Learning Council with Governor Jeb Bush. He's also chair of the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards and the author of a book on raising the grade, how high school reform can save our youth and our nation. There's more to both of their biographies on the slides than we need to say. You'll be able to read those as we proceed through the webinar. Many of you are probably familiar with the basic interface, but a quick introduction. This is the Blackboard Collaborate tool. You'll see we have a whiteboard. Down at the bottom there's a chat box, and I see some of you already beginning to send some messages. Feel free during the webinar to add comments or questions into the chat box. Typically we use those questions as we go in the webinar. In this case, a number of you have sent questions in advance, so we'll start with the questions we received in advance, and if time allows, we'll turn to those that are coming in during the webinar. We'd like to do a couple of things first to see who's here. You'll see in front of you now a map, mostly a map of the United States, but because we've learned that we're getting attendees from other countries, we've crammed in a small map of other continents. And if you wouldn't mind just clicking on or double-clicking on the pencil tool, as you see in the diagram. The pencil tool is the one over on the left of the screen. Pick a pencil size around the middle size and just put a little mark or a dot where you're calling in from so we can get a sense of where people are attending from. I see a number popping up around the country. That's great. Florida, from California, Mexico, Wisconsin. Here we go. They're all pouring in. Some up in New England, up and down the east and west coast. Okay. We currently have 58 people in the room. We're expecting 60, 61 folks who are signing on. Those just signing on, we simply ask people to take the pencil tool at the left and mark where they're calling from. Okay. And we already mentioned, feel free to make comments as the webinar proceeds. Two of my colleagues from the Friday Institute, Bobby Hopgood and Jackie Bella here, will be monitoring your comments and questions, and we will try to get as many of those in as we can in the time allowed. Okay, starting out, I guess this is me. To begin, I'd like to ask both Governor Perdue and Governor Wise, as a governor and former governor, you've chosen to focus lots of your attention and energy on education in general, and more specifically on the potential of technology in education, or digital learning. Given all the issues that governors need to address and that former governors can choose to address, why is education and technology such a high priority for each of you? Governor Perdue, would you like to start?
Thank you, Glenn, and I'm delighted to be here. To have this webinar and all you all who are out there listening, and you get what you pay for. Now, Bob and I don't claim to be rocket scientists, but we do claim to know just a little bit about what drives a state's economy, and that's education. And in the 21st century, you can't get to a new economy without having a good education and also a knowledge of how to use technology. This is the most exciting time, I believe, in my adult lifetime professionally. This phenomenon that we saw begin with the development of the Internet has transformed the way we think, play, shop, do business. There isn't a piece of our lives, both professionally or personally, that isn't touched by technology. And when I realized about 10 years ago that many of the students in high school at that time had more technology in their backpacks than the teachers and the entire school had within the walls of the school, I saw there was a real challenge for North Carolina and for America and for schools around the world. And that has allowed our state to become passionate about technology, working with Myra Best and others, and now passing that work on to Representative Craig Horn and the members of the General Assembly's Digital Committee. We understood that North Carolina could have a virtual high school that would level the playing field. There's no excuse for a kid in poor North Carolina or a kid in wealthy North Carolina school systems not to get the very best, the most accelerated, whatever it is it takes. And there's really no excuse for any of us to say, hey, I can't afford to go to college these days, so you can go to college online in the middle of the night after you've worked a full day shift. Hard, yeah, but doable, absolutely. We've had soldiers and Marines especially come back from Afghanistan and Iraq, and they finished a college degree without ever stepping a foot on a campus. It's doable because of the work we're doing and because of the work you're doing. And so I'm passionate about this. I reckon back to the day that we had a former governor here, Bob, who got a check from the federal government and he bought Blackboards with it. This was more than 100 years ago. Governor Wiley, he said, I'm going to buy some of them Blackboards and I'm going to put them in every school in North Carolina. You know, he had people in wagon trains take those Blackboards to public schools, and the teachers and the principals didn't know what to do with them. And technology, we figured out what to do with. It's as transformational as a Blackboard.
And thank you very much, Governor Perdue and Glenn and the Friday Institute. I'm here to learn from Governor Perdue. I'm here to learn from the Friday Institute. At the Alliance for Excellent Education, we believe that technology is one of the critical means by which we fulfill our mission, and that is that every child graduates from high school, college, and career ready and ready to take their place as a citizen. And so much has been done in the past several years. We look at the challenges ahead, and these are going to, as Governor Perdue has said, these are going to be epic years in the next several years, with almost every state implementing a college and career ready agenda, whether it's the Common Core or college and career ready, but it's the same benchmark, dealing with constrained state budgets, the need for online assessments by 2014 and 15 for 90% of our students, and then also the fact that technology has vastly improved for education and the price points are dropping. So let me just talk for a second about one of the theory that the Alliance of change in action that the Alliance operates under is we look for good practice, and when there's good practice, how do we make it work, turn it into good policy? So I'm here in North Carolina because of what Governor Perdue has done. If you look at when Governor Perdue was Lieutenant Governor, she created the E-Learning Council, which exists today and is a very important entity. She's been a strong advocate and fought for the North Carolina Research and Education Network, NCREN. And incidentally, what that's done is to connect all 115 school districts, which are incredibly important with broadband. North Carolina is employing its North Carolina Race to the Top. It's got the second largest virtual school in the country, behind Florida Virtual. The commitment that North Carolina has made of moving digitally, moving from textbooks to digital content. And then, Glenn, as you know, we often at the Alliance we're looking for how higher education is involved, and so we're often involved in looking at what the Friday Institute is doing to disseminate knowledge about what's good practice. So North Carolina, it's important what's happening in North Carolina for North Carolinians, but as every state, and I'm testifying now seems like once or twice a week across the country in various state legislatures, as every state is dealing with how to move forward with these major challenges that they face. We think there's a lot that North Carolina has to offer.
Good. Thank you both. And Governor Wise, you did a very nice summary of Governor Perdue's contributions in North Carolina. So let me move on to another question. Actually, I think, Governor Wise, I know you're involved in many activities through your alliance in furthering the use of digital learning. Let me ask you to give us a little summary of what your current activities are and what you see ahead for the alliance and the Digital Learning Now Council.
Well, Digital Learning Now is an effort that I co-chair that's started by Governor Jeb Bush of Florida. He's been incredibly active nationally on making sure that digital learning becomes an integral part of the education environment. And so 3 years ago, he called me and said, would you co-chair the Digital Learning Council? And this was about 100 individuals across the country, not in education, nonprofit world, for-profit world, and asked them and create the 10 elements of a high-quality digital learning system. You can find those, and that's now evolved into Digital Learning Now. And if you go to digitallearningnow.com, you can find those 10 elements, and you can also find a 72-part metric by which every state can evaluate how far along they are. From the Alliance for Excellent Education standpoint, we're heavily involved in, we created National Digital Learning Day, and the next one is coming February the 6th, in which 2 million students were involved in the last National Digital Learning Day, 18,000 teachers. We want to build on that, and we're also now developing Project 24. Project 24 is an effort working with a number of other organizations that within 24 months we try to get as many school districts as possible in this country to actually undertake a digital review strategy, and we're working with a number of organizations to develop a strategy template by which school districts would look at how they can embed digital learning into their educational environment, looking at what their student goals are, looking at what their challenges are within their area, such as, do I have high, free, and reduced lunch? Do I have problems with connectivity? And then dealing with what we call the 3 T's. How do you improve teaching with technology? How do you improve time, the use of time? And then finally, what's the appropriate technology for where you are? And so it's a very busy agenda, and as I say, North Carolina, we're working, excited about the chance to work with Friday Institute and also looking at how North Carolina is addressing these.
Thank you. And I, of course, have to say that I really appreciate the fact that you put teachers and time before technology and work at how those three come together. Governor Perdue, we've mentioned a number of the things you've accomplished, and we know you're completing your term as governor. Are there other things you'd like to mention, and more importantly, how would you like to see those of us in North Carolina carry the ball forward from here? What do you see as next for the state?
Well, Glenn, I intend to be very active in North Carolina carrying the ball forward, as most of you would expect from me. So I'm honored that the Friday Institute would allow this kind of conversation to happen here and the work you're doing. And Bob, again, I can't say enough about the Alliance and your leadership around the country and really around the world on technology. What's next for us? I believe that one of the biggest challenges for any of us is how we fund the system. The virtual school in North Carolina, though it's the second largest in the country, as almost any other virtual program in America, has real challenges about the funding system, because you can't feel like the money that it takes to stand up a virtual school is actually taking money away from a traditional public school student. And so there has to be some concept of how we pay for the infrastructure and how we pay for the devices for kids who are poor and can't afford them. The work that we've begun on personalized individual learning, I believe, is critical to be continued in the early parts of the 21st century. I believe very quickly you're going to have every child in the classroom with their own individualized learning plan and content and curricula designed to that child's capacity, whether they're accelerated or being remediated. And technology allows us to do that with the formative assessments and the very magnitude of content that's available for all of us to borrow from others who've done it before us. So you've got to focus on building out the system the way we have here with connectivity. And that starts with the pre-Ks around our state, and I would urge you around America, and doesn't end up until somebody's doing a postdoc at a greater university, or perhaps a lifelong learner sitting at home at 70 or 80 or 90 who wants to get some kind of new learning experience going to enliven their lighter livelihood. And so that all happens with digital opportunities. We're working diligently here. And it's work that we haven't completed, though we've taken remarkable steps to develop a common accountability system, a common data system. And Glenn, you've helped us do that so much around core student data, so that by the time you have a child who enrolls in a pre-K class, we hope to be able to follow that child's progression until the child is an adult leaving higher ed. And so we'll know where to intervene and where the success stories are. That sharing of data among all of the institutions, the silos, if you will, from the K-12 to the community colleges to the universities, both public and private, is essential if this is going to work. We have to tear down the barriers and build partnerships and collaborations, and we see that happening here and across the country. It's pretty exciting.
Thank you. You're both state leaders, you're both national leaders in education and technology. We're coming up on an election. We'll have new governors, we'll have new state legislators. What's your advice to folks coming into office in states about what are the most important actions you see happening at the state level to further digital learning? Governor Wise?
My advice is to, particularly if you're a new office holder, is to look at what you already have and first understand that it's not a question of technology optional anymore. It's technology essential for education. Look at what you have in terms of, do you have a virtual school? And indeed, many of our states, well over half of our states do. What kind of connectivity do you have? What are the challenges that you face? But recognize that you're going to have to make in the next couple of years, 2 years actually, significant decisions, and that there's already a lot that is underway. Every state has adopted a higher set of standards in the past 4 years, whether they adopted the Common Core or they went to college and career ready. It's the same high benchmark. Every state, almost every state, is facing the same budget constraints. Every state is facing issues on teacher preparation. But also every state has been undertaking past administrations, past efforts, combined efforts. So there are several things I'd look at. I'd look at the 10 elements of a high-quality digital learning system that the Digital Learning Now effort has, and that you can find those at digitallearningnow.com. I would look at the proposed draft state legislation that my organization has put forward. It's still under digital comments, so you still have time to comment, trying to address many of the issues that state legislators face. So you might want to look at that if you're a state legislator in terms of addressing some of your certain challenges. And then talking with those in your state so that you know what's available, but then also as you move forward to develop a plan and a strategy. Those are, I think, the important. And there's one other issue: is recognize that you're going to have to take on that it's time that you can't. That technology means that we have to change the way we're doing business. And yesterday's reform is sometimes today's impediment. My best example of that is most of our states require all students to be in their seats 180 days in order to get a credit for a course. That's the Carnegie Seat Time Unit. It was an incredible reform in 1906 and guaranteed every child access to a certain amount of education. Today it could be one of our greatest impediments because it does not permit a child to move forward at their own pace. And so with technology we have that ability. And if I could, one other note I would say is please understand moving forward about technology. Technology is about empowering teachers. The teacher is still the most important force in the educational process. What technology does is what the military calls a force multiplier, makes that teacher that. And as one superintendent said, technology enables that teacher to go and be truly an educational designer of each child's future and maximize their learning outcomes as opposed to simply one size fits all. I've said a lot that there's a lot that a new official is going to have to look at in the months ahead.
Thank you, Governor Wise. I do want want to just note from our conversations, I know you would extend that to say technology is about empowering teachers and students.
And because it's all about, I've heard Governor Perdue say, it's all about the learning outcomes and giving everyone ownership. I think the words you use are ownership of their learning.
That's right.